Don't let the cold weather ruin your ride. Today I'll walk you through the essential steps to fully winterize your Seadoo Switch pontoon boat. We'll cover everything from fuel treatment and fogging the engine to maintain the battery during storage and more. So grab your tools and follow along for the steps I recommend. These are the essential materials I recommend you have to properly treat the systems: a quality fogging lube, marine fuel stabilizer, silicone corrosion treatment, marine antifreeze, and a pump or gravity system to feed the cooling system. Before we get started, you need to remove the floor panels to gain access to the engine bay and electrical components. All you do is lift the handles, turn them to unlock them, then lift the panels out and store them in a safe place. It is safe to use a panel partition wall to step over the engine bay, but I wouldn't use it for more than a momentary step. I like to start off the winterization process by hooking up a battery charger so the battery stays strong, and on this boat, we need to turn the battery switch on. This is the location of the battery and the battery selector switch. I prefer to keep the battery charger setting at 2 to 5 amps to prevent spiking the electrics while starting the boat. It's not a bad idea to get familiar with the other items in the area, like the starter solenoid, fuse panel, and it's a good time to check your coolant level and top it off if it's low. If you didn't blow out the excess water in your exhaust and cooling system, you can do that now, but I'm mainly just starting the engine to see how it runs and if it idles smooth. The fuel is a little low on this boat, but I just wanted to be sure there was enough to run the engine and distribute stabilizer. The next step I like to do is treat the fuel system to full capacity with a marine stabilizer so the stabilizer will move through the system while running it. The fuel axis is on the right side of this model and it has a 29-gallon tank. This stabilizer calls for 1 ounce for every 10 gallons for everyday use, and it is okay to add a little more for storage. The next step, you should close off the exhaust upper drain port to get ready to back flush the jet pump inlet port. Now is a perfect time to remove both the left and right lower hull drains to have ready for storage. I prefer to use garden hose quick disconnects to make hookups and disconnects easier, and I typically have a shutoff valve in line when flushing skis and boats. If you would like to use the same setup I have to push the antifreeze through the system, check out my description for all the products, tools, and materials I use and recommend. For this procedure, you'll need electrical power to power the pump, an extra person to start and shut down the boat, or a ladder to start the boat and quickly rev and shut it down when finished. Since I'll be powering up the antifreeze pump and shutting it down myself, I won't need the shutoff valve for this procedure. Okay, start it up. For this part of the flush procedure, I am treating the exhaust cooling system, but also pushing most of it through the pump inlet port. A half gallon to full gallon is sufficient for this procedure. It is not a necessity to rev the engine for this part, since we're going to do that on the second exhaust treatment, but you can if you want. Just like when flushing your ski or boat, it is important to shut off the antifreeze pump before shutting down the engine to prevent antifreeze getting into the cylinders. As you can see here, when you remove the exhaust cooling drain, a good amount of antifreeze is coming out. We're going to run one more treatment through the cooling system to fully treat the exhaust and cooling passages. Start it up. For this treatment, you use about 1/2 to 1 full gallon of antifreeze also, and when you're done running the pump, you want to rev the engine once or twice to blow out the excess, then shut the engine down. Now that the antifreeze treatment is complete, it is a good idea to blow out the excess with compressed air. Remove the antifreeze pump and flush adapter for this step. This is not a necessity because the antifreeze is already mixed with the exhaust cooling water, but it is a good idea. This is best done with an air nozzle with a rubber tip, but if you seal the port well with a rag, that should allow you to clear the excess in the system. If you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, now's the perfect time to do so. I have a lot more videos to come. In order to gain access to the coil packs and spark plugs, you need to remove the engine top cover. It is attached with 3 small screws and 2 large ones, and you need to remove the dipstick, the sensor at the back of the cover, and pull the cooling line off the top of it. When you get the cover freed up, you can just lay it to the side of the engine while you're doing the other work. Now you can remove the coil pack bolts and the 2 fuel rail bolts because we'll be fogging the cylinders, the intake, and the intake valves. The coil pack bolts are typically Torx bolts, and the intake bolts are E-Torx style. Now you can remove the coil packs and spark plugs and lift the fuel rail to have ready for fogging. Make sure to retrieve the coil pack seals and keep them with the coil packs if they stick to the valve cover, and look for any oil in the spark plug tubes because it is a common problem to see spark plug tubes leaking. The rear cylinder on this boat had oil in the spark plug tube, so I am soaking up the excess oil to reassemble it for now, but that repair will be done at the opening of the next season. I had to snip one tie strap at the front of the engine so the fuel rail would lift up enough. The fuel injectors are clipped into the fuel rail, but just be careful to not damage the fuel rail or pop a clip holding the fuel injector in the rail. Now you can fog the cylinders, the intake, and intake valves. Just 3 to 5 seconds per hole is sufficient. The primary objective for this step is to just get an even coating in all 3 cylinders. Now you need to carefully slip the fuel rail back into the intake and be sure all 3 injector O-rings are in place. When you're done with that, put all 3 spark plugs back in and get them snug, just not over tightened. I typically use a 12-volt driver for this because anything stronger than that may torque small fasteners too much. I like to double check the torque with a hand ratchet to be sure they are fully tightened. Now you can reinstall the fuel rail bolts and torque them down carefully because they thread into nutserts installed into the plastic intake. Next, you need to dead cycle the engine by holding the throttle wide open and spinning the engine over. The coil packs need to be disconnected or left out to prevent the engine from starting, and this is done to distribute the fogging oil through the engine. Now you can reinstall the coil packs and remove the dipstick to have ready for reinstalling the cover. Reinstall the coil pack bolts and torque them down. I like to check them by hand with a small ratchet. Now you can finish reassembling the engine by installing the top engine cover. Work it into place under the cooling line, reattach a sensor at the rear, and install the 5 screws to secure it properly. Be careful with the hardware for the cover because when I originally removed the cover, one of the big screw nut plates fell under the engine. Since it was stainless steel, it obviously was not magnetic. I retrieved the nut before reassembling. I'm using one of my favorite Titan micro ratchets, which is very easy to use in tight areas. Another good thing is it's small enough to prevent over-tightening hardware. I have links to all of my favorite tools and materials on the video and in my description, so you can support the channel and purchase them there. Now you can disconnect the battery charger, turn the battery switch to off, and remove the battery so it can be maintained in the off-season. To preserve the engine bay and prevent corrosion buildup, it is very important to treat everything with an anti-corrosion spray like silicone spray or equivalent. Anything you see that looks chalky or dry, you should coat it well and rub in the excess. Now, before I close everything up, I'm going to go around the boat and point out all of the important features and components for anyone who may need to get more familiar with the Seadoo Switch. If you have any questions about anything I'm pointing out or parts of the video, please post them in the comments and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Now it's time to close everything up and finish putting the Seadoo Switch away for the winter. Drop the engine cover panels into place, lock them up, and finish wiping everything down. Since I put the bimini top up just to make it easier to get around the boat, now I'm putting it back down to store it properly. These are the 2 straps to keep it locked in the down position and how they look when they're secure. Hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it helpful. Please smash the like button to support us and subscribe to my channel to see more cool videos like this one, and I'll see you in the next video.